Hello and welcome to Smart Poker Study. My name is Sky Matsuhashi, and thanks for spending some of your study time with me. So I'm excited about today's podcast episode because I get to share 4 different tools that will help you finally learn poker's top skill of hand reading. Now, 2 of these tools are absolutely free, and the other 2, they cost a few shekels, right? But they are going to turn you into a hand reading master way faster. So please head on over to the show notes page and so that you can follow along as you listen to the podcast, www.smartpokerstudy.com/pod385. Action first, learn later. So here's what you need to do. Go to the show notes page. Once again, smartpokerstudy.com/pod385. Watch the hand reading demonstration video that's at the very top of the page. When you see hand reading done like this, it's going to help you to really understand how valuable this skill is, and it's going to kickstart your hand reading education. So pause the podcast, go to the show notes page, watch the video, then return to learn more about the tools that you can use to finally learn to hand read. Okay, let's do this. Gambate!
Bob, in all my years of calling games, I don't think I've ever been this excited.
You're excited? Feel these nipples.
So for those who don't know what hand reading is, it's the skill of assigning a player a logical range of pre-flop hands based on their actions and what you know about the player, and then you narrow that range through the streets based on further actions and what you know about the player again as well. Now, narrowing the range means that you're actually removing hands that do not fit their post-flop actions, which that allows you to make stronger reads and exploits against them. And that's actually the goal of hand reading, to make better reads on the strength of your opponent's hand so you can exploit them to earn more pots and earn more value. And the opposite of earning, when you do hand reading and make those good reads, it'll actually help you save money so that when you know that you're beat, you're not calling with a subpar hand or you're not trying to bluff the unbluffable players. Now, it's essential that when you're hand reading and you're assigning a range of pre-flop hands to your opponents, you're actually thinking of a range of hands, not just one single hand. And the reason for this is because, as you know, anybody can make a specific play with a various different hands. So, for example, let's say your villain open raises pre-flop from the button. They can do it with pocket aces, obviously, pocket deuces, 4-3 offsuit, Jack 10 suited, or any other kind of hand. And on the King 4-4 flop, right? Let's just imagine that's the flop that hits. When they c-bet 3/4 pot, they can probably make that play with pocket aces and 4-3 offsuit, but maybe not Jack 10 suited, just depending on their player type, right? We can maybe remove Jack 10 suited from their range on the King 4-4 board. So the reason why I think hand reading is the number one skill for poker players, it's because it forces you to consider all the variables in the hand to more accurately determine the strength of your opponent's potential holding. Weak and unskilled players, they really only think about the strength of their hand, their 2-hole cards, and how it interacts with the board. That's really all they think about. And so they think of something like, oh, I have 4-3 and the flop is King 4-4. I've got to c-bet. That's all that goes through their mind. But the skilled players, especially the skilled hand readers, they're going to think about so much more than just their 2-hole cards. They are thinking about the type of player they're up against, their tendencies and their HUD stats, of course. They think about specific actions that their opponent has taken so far, and they think about their options. They also think about the stack sizes involved at the time. The size of the pot is also important as well. Strong hand readers and strong players, they also think about possible future board cards. On the flop, they're concerned with, what if a deuce of spades comes on the turn? What if an ace of clubs comes on the turn? Strong players also think about post-flop position, right? So relative position. Are you in position or out of position against your opponents? And then we're always thinking about table or tournament conditions as well. By considering so much more information, the skilled hand readers, they end up making better, more informed reads than everyone else, which allows them to make better decisions as well. because you're making better decisions and better reads, it leads to more profit. You win more hands. You're able to avoid bad situations a little bit more. You're able to exploit your opponents more. And like I said earlier, you're able to save money when you just know it's a bad situation and you gotta scram. So one last thing I want to say about hand reading before we get to the 4 tools, it's that the best time to start hand reading really was on day 1 of your poker journey. But the second best time, it's right now. So if you do not know how to hand read yet, I guarantee one of these 4 tools, especially number 1, but one of the 4 will help you finally learn this valuable poker skill. So let's get to the 4 tools. The first tool is my brand new online poker hand reading workbook. This is guaranteed to turn you into a hand reading master, assuming you consume the entire notebook or the workbook, you're taking notes along the way, you're doing all of the exercises. Because here's the thing when it comes to hand reading, practice is what it takes. You've got to put in the hand reading reps. You're not just going to learn the strategy in the first few pages of the workbook and then be able to use it for every study session and every in-game session from that point forward. No. You have to put the reps in. So what this workbook does, it's an 87-page PDF with an answer key. It's broken up into 6 different parts. And altogether, throughout the 6 parts, there are 28 workbook exercises to force you into action, doing hand reading, utilizing Flopzilla Pro, assigning ranges, narrowing those ranges through the streets, paying attention to equities, thinking about your opponents, their tendencies, what type of play you're up against, all that stuff through those 6 parts in the 28 workbook exercises. There's actually 2 hand reading video demonstrations above and beyond the one that you got in today's podcast episode. Once again, go to the show notes page, smartpokerstudy.com/pod385 to watch that hand reading demonstration. But there's 2 more in the workbook. Plus, there are 6 video quizzes, and everybody loves video quizzes. You learn so much from them. I don't just quiz you and give you the answers. I give you the strategy behind the answers as well. So the video quizzes test your knowledge, test your education, but then they also impart new lessons to you. There are 17 full-length hand-reading walkthroughs and exercises for you to do in the book. Plus, there's 45 additional hand-reading exercises that you're going to do with hands from your own database. That's why it's called the Online Poker Hand-Reading Workbook. I'm forcing you to go in your own history, learn from your mistakes, learn from the hands that you played by doing these hand-reading exercises. And there's also one free hand reading synopsis download. This is an Excel spreadsheet and a PDF as well that helps you record your hand reading, and it keeps you on track within the hand reading process here. Here's a very important thing. How do you learn with this specific tool, the Online Poker Hand Reading Workbook? Well, here's what I recommend that you do. You start with part 1 and you read or you learn from the hand reading strategies in part 1. But as you're going through it, follow along with Flopzilla Pro, because I actually have you and I show you various things that you can do utilizing ranges in the very first part with Flopzilla Pro. And by doing this, it just gives you great initial practice with the software. Of course, you want to take notes in your poker journal as you're reading and doing things with Flopzilla Pro, watching that demonstration video in the very first part as well. And then you need to complete all 5 workbook exercises. Now, when it comes to the exercises, I recommend that you take your time and maybe do 1 exercise per day. You could force yourself to do all 5 exercises in 1 or 2 hours on day 1. But truly, stretching out your learning over multiple days, it's easier and it's a better way to let this information or have this information really sink in and become a part of your skill set. And the workbook has an answer key, so you can compare your answers to mine within the key and see how you're doing. Now, when you feel confident with the strategies in part 1 and you've completed all the workbook exercises, that's when you move on to part 2, and then you repeat the process, part 2, 3, 4, 5, and then ultimately part 6, and then the workbook final as well. And if you want to check out everything that the hand reading workbook has to offer you, just go to smartpokerstudy.com/handreadingworkbook. A few quick shout outs today. I really want to thank Graham Richardson, Bud Kincaid, Oliver Nolte, James Livingston, Mario Resendez, Patrick Keveney, Jelle Van Hoof, Simon Erb, Tun, Hung, and Ray Springer. You guys you're the first ones to pick up the online poker hand reading workbook this week, and I really do appreciate it. Before I even mentioned it for the first time in the podcast, you guys saw it on sale and you picked it up. I really do appreciate that support. Go to smartpokerstudy.com/hand reading workbook. If you want to follow in the footsteps of these incredible poker peeps and soon to be hand reading masters. All right, the second tool to help you learn hand reading is my book called PostFlop Online Poker. Now, the entire book itself, I actually have it in my hands right now, the paperback version. I just can't remember the number. There are 223 pages in the book to get altogether. 55 pages of the book are dedicated to teaching you how to hand read, both in your studies and in-game while you're playing. So in these 55 pages, you're going to learn hand reading. Then you're going to use this skill throughout the rest of the book to drive home each valuable strategy. Bluff c-betting, value c-betting, using poker math, making positive EV decisions, defending against c-bets, making check raises, facing check raises, all that post-flop stuff. You're going to utilize your hand reading skills while you learn everything else. Now, some of you probably already own PostFlop Online Poker, but you're not a hand reader yet. What you need to do, how you can learn from the book to do hand reading, read one chapter at a time, starting with the very first one about pre-flop ranges or assigning pre-flop ranges. You want to complete every single action step and redo them over and over until you feel confident before moving on to the next chapter where you're going to repeat this process again. Too many people pick up a poker book and they read it in 5 or 7 days and they don't practice anything. Well, as you know, my workbooks or my books, just like the workbook, I teach you strategies, but then I give you a ton of action steps to force you to practice because practice makes perfect. Taking action is the greatest teacher. That's what you've got to do to learn from this book and from anything else that you want to learn from within the realm of poker or life, of course. Now, the third tool to learn poker hand reading is with my epic 3,700 word post called How to Do Poker Hand Reading. You can find a link to it in the show notes page for today or go to smartpokerstudy.com/hand reading. Now, this is absolutely free, 3,700 words. And the great thing about this post when you go there, it actually contains 3 podcast episodes and 4 training videos. They're all posted in YouTube, so they're free videos, right? And I also give you tons of action steps that force you to practice the hand reading skills you're learning in the post. This free hand reading resource, it's a great jumping off point for you to learn hand reading. And actually, if all you did was go to this post, listen to the podcast episodes, follow along with the show notes, and then take action with the action steps, you are going to learn hand reading, I guarantee, and it's absolutely free. Once again, go to smartpokerstudy.com/hand reading. Now, to learn from this post, just like all the others, take it one part at a time, take your time with it, consume the information, whether it's the written words on the screen or listening to the podcast, take notes in your poker journal, and then take action with all the action steps. Do that before you move on to the next part and then ultimately the final part of it. All right, the fourth tool for hand reading, and this is another free one. This is my 66 Days of Hand Reading YouTube playlist. There are 67 videos in this playlist, and you can find a link to it by going to smartpokerstudy.com/pod385. Hopefully, you're already on the show notes page. You can see it. Just click on that link. Like literally 67 videos. I added an additional one there. In these videos, you're going to see me over 67 different hands cover the entire hand reading process over and over again. You're going to see me go through 2-bet pots as the raiser, as the caller, 3-bet pots as the raiser, as the caller, even some 4-bet pots, and quite a few limped pots. Actually, video number 1 is all about isolating a nitty limper. So somebody limps in, I ISO raise, and then bam, we do the whole hand reading process right there. Throughout the 67 videos, you're also going to find heads-up situations, multi-way situations, spots where I am in position versus out of position. I do hand reading on myself as the hero in the hand, also on multiple villains that I face throughout these videos. So In this playlist, 67 videos, I basically hit hand reading in every possible scenario. And I discuss profitable strategies and any mistakes that I made along the way as I'm reviewing these hands. You could truly learn hand reading just with these videos, not have to pay a single thing. Like I said, totally free resource. But here's how you're going to learn from it. As you're watching the videos, have Flopzilla Pro open on your computer and do the hand reading with me. Maybe if this is your first time hand reading, copy exactly what I'm doing in videos, day 1, day 2, day 3 maybe. But starting at least on day 4, don't copy my choices. Just imagine you or me, your hero in the situation. What you want to do is assign the ranges that you think your opponents, if this was your opponent, you were sitting against Bob 1, 2, 3, maybe I give him a 25% calling range. But you think about this player type, you think about the games that you play, your experiences with your opponents, and you think, wait a second, not 25%, I would put Bob on a 30% range. Awesome. Enter 30% into Flopzilla Pro and go from there, right? Here's the thing about hand reading. My answers, and nobody's answers, they're not the holy grail of hand reading. Because when you watch my videos, I'm using my experience with my opponents. If I think Bob 1, 2, 3 is on a 25% range, that's what I'm going with. That's what I'm going to be thinking about as I play against Bob in hand after hand. But when you face Bob, your life experience will have you thinking differently than me. You're going to put him on a different range of hands. You want to practice ranging as you see fit over and over again. So maybe from video 4 and on, you're making all of your own choices when it comes to assigning preflop ranges and then narrowing those ranges. I might think Bob would fold all gut shot draws, but you've played with players like Bob all the time, and at your stakes and at the site that you play on, they always call with gut shots. Awesome. Keep those gut shots in versus your C-bet on the flop, Challenge! Here's my challenge to you for this episode. Finally, learn how to hand read by utilizing one of the 4 tools today. If you want something totally free, well, you have my epic post or my 66 days of hand reading. If you want something super efficient that's going to nail down all the practice that you need, teach you all the strategies, but then give you all the action steps to practice, get either the Online Poker Hand Reading Workbook or PostFlop Online Poker. And regardless of the tool that you choose to learn hand reading, it's critical that you take notes as you study and then take action with every action step along the way. Now it's your turn to take action and dippy do something positive for your poker game.
Oh, that's it now. Get out there and be somebody. Go write a book.
Alrighty, your learning isn't complete until you visit the show notes page, smartpokerstudy.com/pod385. You get basically a transcript of today's episode and links to all 4 tools so you can start learning from them for yourself. I really appreciate you spending some of your study time with me today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please tell a friend about the show. I appreciate it so very much. Until next time, take action both on and off the felt to become the player that you want to be.